Hello traders, Jonathan with Forex Flow Trading. I want to go over a training video on the euro dollar. Waited till Monday, June the 4th. Going to be looking at last week. Last week was an intense. We had some intense moves on some pairs with all the Europe mess kind of going on. But I want to go over, when we get in times like these, like I've said before, it's going to be the minority of the time. But when a cap is breached in the same day, kind of how to handle that if you're not just running a fixed stop. And a lot of times when we get in these modes and we come to the end of a trend and the market needs to rebalance, it can be very kind of profitable. So I want you to see this. And kind of the more you see it, the more you get used to it. This is the euro dollar. Established downtrend during the month of May. Last week was end of the month beginning, increased volatility, but also can establish a decent, turn point for a good bounce. I want to dive into. I'm looking at the 1 hour. I want to go back to the 30th because that was. We had caught, Monday we had caught the sell on the euro. So depending on if you rode it down all week, which you kind of need two accounts or a hedge account outside of the States if you're going to take trades on both sides. Well, let's look at the 30th. Is that where we kind of had the first breach of a cap and an Asia update. These are the levels from that day, kind of left on. You can go back and check. It's 124.04.16 with a cap of 123.87. Right here, let me look at the 30-minute real quick. You'll see where how to bounce. Came to the cap, bounced off the cap. We like, if you're trading intraday, we like to move stops 15 to 20 pips on a 15 to 20 pip bounce. We like to protect the trade, especially if it's a counter trend, a trade against an established trend, which this obviously is on the euro. And if price action doesn't really bounce farther, you can always make a judgment call and just get out and wait for try it the next day, especially if you're riding a sell down. But if you're not, then just take the profit you get on a bounce if there's some extreme pressure. And there will be in an established trend when it comes to a rebalancing point. So there's going to be some overshoots, stuff like that. So you need to kind of learn how to maybe read that. So when we breach the cap on that day, we're down here 23.61, I believe. Because of the breach I sent out, and because of the market, I sent out an Asia update email. Here's kind of a copy of it. But the market should rebalance, especially from the Asia session. And when you get in a place like this, you can actually, look to buy the next level if I'm providing information. Or the safest way is to trade the recapture of the levels, which would confirm higher. And so that's probably the first time I've ever said that. So I want to kind of go over that, what that actually means and looks like. So I said that here. Support became, this 23.29.36, I believe, was the Asia update support. Didn't reach it. The market kind of rebalanced up, but it never really recaptured the caps and the levels. And when I say recaptured, it kind of sustains above it, and you can look at this typically will stair step. So if the market doesn't recapture the levels, it can continue lower to the next kind of flow zone that we provide. And you'll see this pattern if there is a breach, especially in the same day. It'll happen during these kind of intense liquidation moments in the market. But the support, that we had mentioned, buying that support, 23, 29 to 36, came down to it after it couldn't recapture these levels, came down to it, and then provided a really, a good bounce trade for 60 pips or so, which is, 40 to 70 pip is our intraday target. So a good bounce trade on that, but again, could not kind of recapture the previous day's levels. So continued to come down, bounce again off of this 29.36 area. These were the next day flow levels, the 29.44 with a cap of 23.07. And at this point, I'm posting that still that the market needs to rebalance some. But we've got NFP, non-farm payrolls, that was coming out. So suggested to wait. Typically, a major event can be a turn point, because what happens is you've got a lot of retail traders who are carrying the euro long, even though it's an established downtrend. They're just holding long positions. They're not holding long and holding short. A lot of them are just holding long because they get stuck in a trade and they have no plan and they don't get out. And they're waiting for a turn. And so what happens is the final kind of turning point will be where they're margined out, or they just give up and sell the trade because the fear kind of takes over around a major event. Non-farm payrolls came out, worse than expected. Typically, we've seen risk take over the markets and the euro go lower, but in this case, because of positioning, and it could be kind of read that the dollar, the excuse is always what it means, but the reality is the market moves on positions. Has nothing to do, for the most part, with fundamental news. The news provides orders, so in essence it kind of does, but news alone won't move a market. It always comes down to orders and where the orders are placed. In this case, you got retail traders holding, so they're getting squeezed out, and they use a spike event to kind of, what do you think happened here? A lot of retail traders got closed out on euro longs, and then the market reverses. Using the flows as a guide, you see this buying here with a cap here, and our cap is not necessarily a stop, and definitely in these times I tend to reduce my size and manage a position trade because I know the market needs to rebalance, so I'll continue to kind of build into it. And these overshoots, this is the 1 hour chart. So this is not a breach of a cap by no stretch. This is a stop run. It just clearing out stops. So even if you get taken, and look at, this is a good indication, especially with this information. If you see this happen and the hour candle closes like this, you want to buy the next open hour candle all day long. Put your stop under the previous, and this is a reversal candle, pretty significant, especially if it's around flows and caps. And then you'll notice now, Friday into the weekend, now on the open, it's beginning to kind of recapture these. We're getting an hour close above it, above that 24.04 and 16. So it was recaptured the levels. And what you'll see happen on a recapture, now the cap establishes support again, and we bounce off of that cap, off of these buy levels, and we've moved up to right around the 25 handle at the top. Our sell levels are pretty close today, right above there. But you want to see this price action, because it'll, on significant turns when there's been a long trend, you got to remember we've been in this thing. The euro has come off from 133 at the beginning of the month. So you're coming off, 10 figures or 1,000 pips. When you have a straight move like that, there's a lot of traders who are stuck. So you can look for these overshoots that'll happen. It doesn't mean you want to get out. This is where, when the market's ready to rebalance, this is where you kind of want to play the other side. As I noted, buying the odd, I think at the same time around here, I noticed buying the Australian dollar. The British pound, much more of a, in these times, much more volatile pair. So it's safest to wait for a recapture of the levels on a trade, especially in an environment like this, or stay out of. The British pound and the euro yen are going to be the most volatile during times like these. But like I said, that's going to be 10 to 20% of the market time. We'll get times like these. Now I think that this week is going to establish a lower range, and then not as intense overshoots as we've seen, but we'll play it as it goes. But continue to do this. Use the levels, and look back at the previous week when you go through it using the levels, and watch the action around the levels. If you need to step to a bigger chart, when you look at the 4-hour, you see this this 4-hour turn. There's no real breach of that cap. It doesn't close under it, even on the 1 hour, even on the 30-minute. I mean, that's what we call an overshoot. So we're buying. If we see this, we're going to buy this. This is a reversal, so especially off of a major event, unless we've got other information to share. But just kind of wanted to do a quick one. I'll continue to do some more videos on price action, especially during real volatile times, at the end of a pretty established trend or at a rebalancing point, of kind of how to read those, how to kind of step back, get a bigger picture, and not get stuck in a smaller time frame with no plan, and know how to read price action and such. Okay, guys, until next time, good luck.